Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Foxwell. I am product manager at Server Density, and I'm here to talk about resilience today, but through a very different perspective. And I'm going to start by just reflecting on how we as humans, clickety-click, how we as humans are not like the platforms that we manage. You are not immutable. You are not highly available, and you are ephemeral. This might come as news to some of you, but when we think about ourselves in the same way that we think about our platforms, we turn up a whole heap of problems for ourselves. And no matter who you are, you're not highly available. You will have a breaking point. And actually, sometimes in our work environments, our jobs can push us to that breaking point. But the good news is there are ways to prevent this. There are ways that we can help ourselves, and there's ways that we can help the people around us. So I'm here today to talk about resilience, not the resilience of our platforms, but the resilience of our people, because the human components of our systems are very different to the infrastructure. I'm going to talk about human ops to begin with. So as I mentioned, I am the product manager at Server Density. And last year, Server Density started a community called Human Ops to start a conversation about the very real impact of working in operations today and the very real human impact of working in technology today, because it's not always easy. We quite often have quite very demanding and challenging jobs. Human Ops is a community, and the messages of Human Ops really resonated with me immediately. And they have obviously resonated with the organizing team here. I was absolutely thrilled to be running a Human Ops workshop yesterday. And we even have a Human Ops track to talk about the very human parts of DevOps this afternoon, which is absolutely amazing to see. And I just wanted to thank the organizing team for that opportunity. One of the tenets of Human Ops is that the well-being of human operators impacts the reliability of systems. And I think we all sort of instinctively know this to be true. Is anybody going to be doing their best work when they're on call at 3 a.m., sort of hunched over their laptop in bed? No, you're not. Are you going to be doing your best work the next day after you've had your sleep disrupted? Are you going to be thinking clearly, making good decisions, and doing your best creative programming if you have an environment which causes stress and is impacting your emotional well-being? Probably not. So today I'm going to talk about resilience, because resilience is one of the ways that we can help cope with this environment better. Resilience, by definition, is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. And we spend a lot of our time in this industry thinking about resilience. You know, if you've ever configured a load balancer or backed up your data or set up a cluster, you're talking about resiliency there. But it's very rare that we talk about the resiliency within our people. People are genuinely more difficult to work with than machines. We are incredibly complicated beings. And when you break a person, he can't be fixed. When I reflect on the challenges and the most difficult situations I've encountered during my career in technology, it's been the people problems and the human factors that have been most challenging to solve. So I wanted to make sure I just said this at the outset, that this actually isn't a talk about what's wrong with you. We all experience stress, and many of us have gone through burnout, and that's absolutely, completely normal, and you shouldn't feel bad about this. This is a talk about how we can help ourselves get better at it, and how we can help each other and be more supportive and build that resiliency that we need. And before I get into the psychology of resilience and the toolkit that we might need in our organizations to become more resilient as people, I'm going to reflect on change, because change is everywhere. And when we initiate changes, whether it be digital transformation or DevOps transformation or moving to the cloud or automation, change will take its toll on people, and we react to change in a different way to our infrastructure. You can't just upgrade a person overnight. There's no A/B switch, there's no automated change pipeline that you can apply to a person. Sometimes it takes time, and often it will take a toll on that individual. So, as a human yourself, you might be able to relate to this. And yet, quite often, I see transformational change within organizations approached in the same way that we approach an engineering project. There's a wonderful plan, and it assumes that every human component of your organization is as easy to change as the infrastructure they're supporting. And that's just simply not the case. In my career, I've come to realize that the only thing that's constant is change. It doesn't matter whether it's the technology we're working on or the practices that we use to support it. The only thing that I believe that we can rely on as technology professionals today is that we will be constantly changing and that we will be required to constantly learn new skills to have a successful career in technology. So, I'm going to tell you a story now about my very first day of work. So I started a graduate training program straight out of university. And as part of this, we had an induction day. We were taken out to a very fancy country hotel, and we had lots of very important directors in suits come to give us presentations about why we were the future of the business and what their vision was for the next 12, 24 months. And to be honest, I don't remember an awful lot about that day, but I do remember this one guy who stood up in front of us, and he talked to us about the emotional cycle of change. He said, "You've left a university and you're going into a workplace, and this is an enormous life change for you. You've changed the people that you're around, what you're doing, the type of work that you're doing, and some of you have even relocated." And he warned us about the well of despair. He said, "You will experience the well of despair at some point, because it's a natural part of dealing with change." And he said it's absolutely normal and that you shouldn't feel bad about it. You're going to feel like you don't know how to do your job. You're going to feel like you're not good enough. You're going to feel daunted by the amount that you need to learn, and that it's okay. And you know what? We all did go through that emotional cycle of change. We all went into the well of despair at some point. But because we'd talked about it and because we knew it was normal, we were able to seek support. So instead of pretending that everything was all right with us, we could sit down together and go like, "Oh my God, I'm really in the well of despair right now. I don't quite know how to tackle this problem, or I don't know how to move forward, or oh my God, I have so much to learn. I feel really overwhelmed right now." And it was really powerful. Just the fact that we knew that we were normal allowed us to talk about it and to seek the support we needed. So I'm going to talk you through the emotional cycle of change. Has anybody seen this before? The people who were in Ghent in February might have seen this before, because I presented it there. But there are essentially sort of 5 phases to the emotional cycle of change, and you can probably relate to these. When you begin a project, you're full of optimism. You only see the benefits, and you don't yet understand the challenges that are ahead of you. So that's the peak of uninformed optimism. But as you start to learn about what you're working on, as challenges crop up, as you find barriers, as you have to navigate your way through that piece of work or that change or whatever you're going through, you start to slump down into informed pessimism. And if you don't sort of steady your course, that's when the well of despair can hit. And the well of despair is when your motivation is at its absolute lowest. You don't know what to do next to continue on. And actually, that's where quite a lot of transformation programs sort of stall. If you don't manage the people through this emotional cycle of change correctly, then everybody ends up in the well of despair and transformations get abandoned. But if you do push on and you do find solutions to your problems, you start to climb back up through hopeful realism towards rewarding completion. And the funny thing about this emotional cycle of change is that I can't really remember a time where I went, oh, job done, rewarding completion. This is, my work here is done, and we can just go back to normality. And the thing is that in our industry, it's more like this. We're constantly changing. We're changing in so many different ways, and we're changing everything all at once right now, it feels like. That by the time that you've just sort of clawed your way out of the well of despair on one particular change, you get thrown straight back into it from the next big thing that's coming along. It doesn't matter whether it's agile or BDD or test-driven development or DevOps. There will always be a next thing. So we need to find a way to manage this. Otherwise, we are all going to be in the well of despair half of the time, and that's not okay. It's interesting to reflect on how technology advancement has an impact on the people who work in our industry. I think Thomas Friedman illustrates it quite well in his book, Thank You for Being Late. So he says that actually the rate of change of technology is outpacing our sort of human capacity for adaptability, and it can feel quite uncomfortable at times. And I think a lot of us in this room are sort of at the bleeding edge of that, and it can feel quite hard. So he sort of proposes that we have to work smarter, learn faster in order to keep up. And I think there's an awful lot of the practices that we talk about in DevOps that fit within that category. We're creating environments where we can learn faster, and we're creating processes where we can govern smarter with less overhead. So back to resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. How do we avoid that well of despair? Well, it's resilience. And the thing about resilience is it's not some finite characteristic that you have from birth and it stays the same until death. It is a set of skills that can be learned and developed, and it's a set of skills that can be greatly improved and enhanced by factors within your environment. How can we change the massive well of despair that's hard to climb out of into just a mere bump in the road? We need to think about resilience. And in the study of resilience, opinions have changed. Resilience is not a trait that either people have or do not have. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned or developed in anyone. And I think that's really important. We conversationally talk about resilience as though it's a character trait, but actually it's not. We need to think of resiliency as a set of skills that we can enhance and learn. It was a psychologist called Garmezi who first coined the term protective factors and really flipped resilience research on its head. Instead of looking for the reasons why, in the face of challenges and adversity, certain individuals faltered and failed, he looked for the reasons why they succeed. He focused on the positive outcomes. And he created this term protective factors as an umbrella for those. So protective factors are elements of an individual's environment, background, or personality that enable success despite the challenges faced. So we're going to talk about some of those protective factors now, because it turns out that when you reflect on the things we talk about in this room, the things that we care about in the DevOps community, a lot of these things actually support greater resiliency within the individuals we work with. I'm going to start by introducing the concept of an internal locus of control. it's been found that individuals who have an internal locus of control are greatly more resilient than those who have an external locus of control. Basically, what this means is that if you have an internal locus of control, you believe that you have an influence on the outcomes around you. You believe that the outcomes are determined by your hard work, your attitude, your decisions. It's the difference between saying, this is impossible, and this feels impossible right now. So maybe I'll take some steps to understand it better. And of course, this is completely related to the concept of having a growth mindset. How do you approach problems? Do you believe that you're helpless in the face of adversity? Or do you believe that your actions can determine a better, more positive outcome? So I started to think about the practices and the culture that we promote as part of the DevOps community in this context. So I wanted to go through that now quickly. It's not difficult to see how a culture of trust and autonomy can promote a greater sense of your individual contribution to an organization and develop that internal locus of control, which actually improves your resilience and your ability to avoid the well of despair. Again, if you operate within an organization which has a very command and control style to management, you're probably not going to feel like you have a lot of say in the decisions that are going to be being made, the decisions that impact you. And you'll have a greater external locus of control, which is more likely to push you into that well of despair. When we think about the technology that we get excited about and that we're building, loosely coupled microservices seem like a great solution to having control over your own domain. If you have a smaller surface area and less dependencies to manage with your technology stack, you're more likely to feel that the problems you encounter are within your own control to fix. And that, again, it will improve your resilience. It will give you that internal locus of control, which is obviously, on the flip side, highly dependent monolithic systems, especially with a lot of people who collaborating on them, can be quite hard to feel like you're in control of your domain. And finally, if we look at tools, so an automated continuous delivery pipeline that allows a developer to deploy their code into production is going to give that developer a greater sense of control of how and when their software is shipped. Which is completely different to what a lot of sort of legacy processes look like. I know at the beginning of my career, we were working on high-impact sort of quarterly releases, and it was incredibly difficult to understand how an individual contributor within a development team of 200 had any influence over that release process. It was completely outside of their realm, and it didn't contribute towards an internal locus of control, and it would be easy for them to feel like they didn't have any influence on that situation. And while I was doing some research around resilience, I came across a slightly different definition that I wanted to share with you. This is from resilienceresearch.org. In the context of exposure to significant adversity, resilience is both the capacity of individuals to navigate their way to the psychological, social, cultural, and physical resources that sustain their well-being, and their capacity individually and collectively to negotiate for these resources to be provided in culturally meaningful ways. We're talking about this at sort of this definition is more a society level. It's designed to promote responsibility around culturally to improve the resilience so that people in extreme adversity can find what they need to better their situation. But a couple of the phrases in this really resonated with me because, and I've highlighted them here, resiliency is the capacity to navigate their way to resources. And I've spelt resources wrong, which is a real shame. Oops. But yeah, I paraphrased that because I think there is a message there that we can take away to our organizations. And it's like, actually, when faced with a challenge, can I independently navigate my way to a solution? If you can do that within your organization, you're going to feel like you're more in control and you're going to be more resilient as a result of that. And there's lots of different ways that that we can think about that. I mean, the one that springs to mind is good documentation. If you can navigate your way to the solution to your problem through your internal documentation, then you're going to feel a lot more in control of your working life, and you'll be a lot more resilient as a result. And of course, there's a lot of other things that we can do to improve our resilience, and I'm going to talk about a few of those now. The number one thing we can do is offer caring, listening, and supportive relationships to the people around us. And it doesn't have to be a manager or a team leader's duty to provide that support. We need to support each other. And we can do that in lots of ways, but the main one is taking an interest, understanding that person, building empathy, and listening to them when they want to talk about their problems. And that is the most powerful way you can support them and build their resilience. In terms of teams and how teams operate, there's a few other things you can do. I've talked about supporting each other, but we also need to think about trust and allowing people to do their work without micromanagement and with a sense of autonomy and ownership. If we provide teams with a sense of purpose, that the goal that they're working towards is a shared one, they're more likely to feel that they're in control of the outcome, and that the outcome that everyone's working towards is a common one. By focusing on the opportunity instead of always talking about the challenges and the problems that we're facing, it's a good way to reframe the problems that we face. Everyone's going to face challenges. And if we get really dramatic and we lock in everyone in a war room every time we face a problem, we're going to be locked in the war room forever. So really focusing on the opportunity, not just to get better as a team, but also to learn something along the way. Providing constructive feedback to each other is another important thing. So people do make mistakes sometimes, and it's important to frame those errors of judgment in the right way. And by providing constructive feedback that focuses on what we can do better next time and focuses on what we learned through this process is a much better way to help the individual feel like they have control and influence over how to get better for next time. Instead of just sitting down and kicking themselves and saying, like, I'm so stupid, it's actually, yeah, okay, I made a mistake, but I've learned this, and I'm going to do this next time, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to get better. Coaching skills is another thing that really improves people's internal locus of control. Instead of, you might know the answer to a problem, but instead of telling somebody the answer to their problem, help them find their way to the answer for themselves, and they'll be more independent and more able to think for themselves next time round. And again, like I said, I think changes and challenges are just part of our world, and so we have to stay positive and optimistic in the face of setbacks, because this is our reality. If we let it get to us, then we'll be in the well of despair forever. And finally, building a community can really help. Sometimes it's quite difficult to talk about how you feel with your direct team members. If you've got a community inside your organization at work, then that's fantastic, and you can seek support and reassurance through that community. But if not, then the DevOps community and the technology communities are a fantastic place to go. I know that when I was working on my own and starting my own business, I didn't have that support network that I was used to, and the DevOps community for me was a great source of ideas and support and learning during that time. And finally, we talk about you. So we've talked about how our environments can influence our resilience, but actually there's things that you can do as an individual to help yourself. Make sure you take breaks. Anything that's going to reduce your stress levels is going to be good for you. So make sure you take regular breaks. Nobody can work productively for 8 hours straight, so don't even try. You can also observe your thoughts. The interesting thing about stress is it's just your perception of a situation. So instead of panicking and saying, oh my God, I feel really stressed right now, what you can do is say, okay, well, I feel really sort of disassociate yourself from your thoughts. You can say, well, actually, I'm feeling really stressed because of this and that, and I'm going to do this and this next. And then it helps you just sort of recenter yourself and bring back that sense of control that you need. So observe your thoughts, but don't always become your thoughts. Look after your health. This is probably an obvious one, but how many of us exist on takeaways and caffeine, and we don't get enough exercise or drink enough water? We all know these things are good for us, but we often forget. So look after your health, please. And finally, talk about it. It's very easy for us to ignore our problems and not to share them and think that we can handle things on our own. But even just by talking through issues, it allows you to greatly improve your situation through clarity of thought. So as a final couple of thoughts on where we are with DevOps and where we are as a community, I think we will always be changing, and we in this room are lucky that we've sort of recognized the need to change. There are people back in our organizations who haven't recognized that yet or are still resistant to change. But change is our reality now, and we need to get better at it. And we can get better at it by adopting those learning behaviors and building our own resilience and becoming more resilient in the face of the challenges that will inevitably come. So finally, I just want to go back to one of the tenets of human ops. The well-being of human operators will impact the reliability of your systems. The resiliency of your teams will impact the resilience of your systems. We need to look after our humans because we're not like machines. We are flesh and blood. We have thoughts and feelings and emotions, but that does not mean that we're not important. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, we decided to cancel the beer and the barbecue tonight because we need to be more healthy.
Yes, you do.
Sorry. Don't blame her. It's for the greater good. So, question time again. Do you want the honors? Or?
Oh, yeah. Hi. Oh, to throw the thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Sorry. Oh, it wasn't
Great.
bad.
Better than me.
Hi, it's not really a question. It's more 2 extra suggestions for the personal resiliency. I think the thing we saw yesterday in the workshop is like reducing input is a great thing to do. So you don't have to read everything all the time. You don't have to be available every second of the day. Just turning things off can be really helpful, I think. And a second thing I would like to suggest is like to try a regular meditation practice, like even 10 minutes a day can really improve your mental resiliency. And a great thing for that is the Headspace app. If you don't know it, you should watch the talk of the creator, Andy Pucomb, on TED. It's called, I think, 10 minutes a day, and it's about starting up a meditation practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hands up if you want the things thrown at you. Come on. All right, so just because... there we go.
Oh.
Do you have any other specific suggestions that we could do at like a squad or an organizational level to encourage human resiliency? Specific.
One thing I forgot to mention is the sort of including this type of thing into your continuous improvement processes. So during retrospectives, we often talk about technical problems, what we sort of learned technically, but we also kind of need to talk about how we feel emotionally about our work and how we can get better at that. So I would open up your sort of normal ceremonies, if you do retrospectives and things like that, to include some of these aspects, and to foster an environment where people feel like they can talk about their feelings, especially if they feel like they're slumping down into that place of low motivation, because most of the time, their team actually they want to help and they want to listen, but it's a bit scary to take that first step and ask for the help you need.
Thank you.
Good point. Next one, yeah.
I had a slide that showed kind of a gap between social progress and technological progress.
Oh, yeah.
Or kind of their different rates of advancement, and said that there is sort of a gap right now. You may not have an answer for this question, but I guess how do we bridge the gap? How do we get society to advance at a faster rate to keep up?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. So the thing about that illustration is that that's what it is. It sort of captures the feeling of a lot of people right now, in that they feel like they can't keep up. And I think the great thing about the internet is that it makes so much information available to you all day, every day. And then the awful thing about the internet is that it makes so much information available to you all day, every day. There's always somebody doing something better than you, or who knows more than you, or who's using a better technology than you. And I think there is something to be said for sort of tuning a little bit of that out, and just working on the problem at hand, instead of worrying about the future.
That's a very good point as well. So who's next? I see one there. Behind you.
Yeah, I wonder, do we have freedom of speed?
I don't know what you mean.
Speed in the way we want to go faster, people mentioning this. Everything is going faster and faster, but maybe some people just want to slow down. Do we have that freedom?
Do we have that freedom? Yeah, I think it's a choice, definitely. It's definitely a choice. The people who are innovating on new technologies aren't going to stop innovating on them. But there is something to be said for leapfrogging a couple of steps along the way. You don't have to be at the bleeding edge at every moment in time. Actually, there's something to be said for doing what you do right now really well, and then thinking about the future once you're in that position. Is that a good enough answer? That's a hard question.
Thank you.
It's a good point, though, because you easily get caught up in new technologies, and if you need to follow every single changelog that comes out for every single piece of technology that's somewhat interesting or somewhat relevant to you, you'll do nothing else but invest your time into that all day.
Yeah.
Anyway, another thank you to Hannah, please.
Thank you.
Round of applause.